This week's episode is sponsored by Coca-Cola. Tiny Cokes, so cute. Get them anywhere. Or as Tom Cruise, I fucked this up already. As Tom Cruise, they're Tiny Cokes, but if Tom Cruise was an ad partner with Coca-Cola, he would call them normal Cokes.
So tiny,
because he's short.
Because he's tiny.
He's a tiny man, tiny king.
So thanks to our partners at Coca-Cola.
Tiny man who solves a big mission.
Which country did Coca-Cola? They sponsored like a coup in one of those South American countries, right?
That's cinema, baby.
No, Mr. Wilson. I don't have to take that kind of talk from anyone.
That's right, you don't. How about going outside and trying to kick me around?
I'm not supposed to fight with the guests, Mr. Wilson.
I'm not a guest tonight, you yellow bastard. I happen to be an intruder.
Hello, and welcome to the Pod of the Ugly, a film podcast where we pair movies to garner a better understanding of the filmographies of notable directors or actors and to be banned in Russia. I'm Logan, first name Thomas, one of your hosts.
I'm Coral, first name Kenneth, your other host.
Tobias, first name Ryan, reporting for dirty duty, sir.
Reporting for dirty.
Reporting for duty. I'm like poop. You get it? I have a 7-year-old.
I'm Coral, first name Jack.
Yeah, Jack is joining us.
And normally we do a deep dive on a single creative, whether that's an actor or a director. But this week and this season, we're redoing previous episodes.
We're taking a look back
to probably, or 5 years in, we're going back to memory lane, and we are pairing the films still this week. We have previously talked about Honky Tonk Man, and that got paired with another road trip movie, the 1517 to Paris.
2018's 1517 to Paris, just
From
to keep it really convoluted.
Episode 5 years ago.
Wow, it was that early?
Furthest back we have gone, yeah. We were much funnier back then, Jack.
It was a good. You guys had some good bits that episode. It's true.
Yeah, so 1517 and Honky Tonk Man, both films have child actors.
Mm-hmm.
Both have our protagonist help an elderly person to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Both have convertibles. Okay, you guys don't know that. Both, okay, Eastwood also directed and starred in another film released this same year. So for both films, they have another film shot by Eastwood and starring him in that same year. Came out. Yeah? Better? Okay.
What was the one this year?
The Mule.
The Mule.
Yeah, Mule and Firefox for Honky Tonk. Okay. And both someone oversleeps.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Both have a shirtless man who's attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Both have the word honky in them, but when they say the H word in one film, it's like a hard K at the end, and the other one is a little bit better. It's R word. Both are book adaptations by a screenplay by a writer of a screenplay who will not ever write another screenplay again, at least as of this date. I guess both have a man arrested after having a gun put in his face. And both, a gun doesn't go off. And surprisingly, even though this isn't in both films, it is in 15 to 17, and so far in every one of our pairings, this being the third time this has come up, there's someone in a fat suit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is there a fat suit in this one?
Yeah.
The kid who drops the weight?
Spencer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
So who has us watching this?
That would be me. Coral, first name Kenneth. And I guess I should explain why, because we watched this 5 years ago. And if you listen to the original episode, it's a pretty good one. Audio's very good. Good job, Jack. That we really didn't like it. We did like the sequence at the end, which is the attack. But since then, this movie has stuck with me because I still can't believe it was made. And I can't believe it exists. And as the further we go on from it, I find that weirdly charming, and I have a lot of warmth towards it. And I was really wanted to put Ryan and Thomas through it. So Jack and I aren't the only ones who have all the little jokes that we still joke about the movie, you know?
You know what, Ken? You know what, Ken? Thank you. This was an experience. We're not getting the reactions yet, but this was an experience. And if there's only one other film that we covered the same year, that I would probably put this movie above. So as we mentioned in 2018, The Mule also came out, and we talked about that here. We also talked about Mamma Mia. Here we go again.
Ah.
But the movie that would maybe top this movie by a nose was Mandy. The year Mandy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a great Nicolas Cage film. And then we didn't, I don't think, cover it, and no one wants to talk about it. There was another film. It was a Spielberg film that came out this year called Ready Player One. So, 1517.
These are the same year? Oh my God.
2018 is one of my favorite years for film ever.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Whenever people our age talk about films, the film nerds, we really talk about the year 2018 when we go back in time and think about it.
It might be one of my favorite years, actually, because there's been...
Wait, what else came out in 2018?
Some great stuff.
I didn't see that.
I'm pulling it up on Letterboxd right now.
Oh, Burning? Burning is great, yeah.
Long Day's Journey into Night.
Oh, Long Day's Journey into Night. It's
yes.
great.
Anyway, we're talking about 1517 to Paris.
1517 to Paris. One of the strangest movies ever made. 3 years after the terrorist incident, Clint Eastwood decides to have somebody who cajoled her way into getting a screenwriting gig write an adaptation of a book, and decided to cast the actual guys who stopped the terrorist attack on a train to Paris.
And the actual guy who got shot, right?
And the actual guy that got shot.
That was the guy, that was the real guy?
Yeah.
The guy that's like bleeding out?
Yeah.
What?
At least that's what you said on the original podcast. I haven't fact checked it.
Wow.
Yeah. I watching this again, I had the same reaction. I knowing what was going to happen, I guess I felt a little warmer to it, like I said. But my same reaction to 80% of this movie is, how did this get made? How did they cast like good actors around these guys? And how much cachet did Eastwood have after like American Sniper and Sully to be able to get this made? Such a weirdest studio project from a major two-time Oscar winner.
It's I agree. It's a very strange film. I think this comes out in what I'm thinking of as Clint Eastwood's hero phase. Just like you said, like American Sniper, Sully, and I think
add American to it, and I think that's exactly correct.
Okay, thank you, American Hero. Thank you.
Yeah. I would agree. And this is kind of the tail end of that, and then really the start of this and his next three films, I think, that we all talked about.
Richard Jewell?
Not all of us. Well, The Mule, Richard Mule, and then Cry Macho are all really sloppy films that feel undercooked and need a few passes in the screenplays. And Eastwood's penchant for going with the first draft has always been his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. And particularly this one and the following three, which I'm very happy that Juror Number 2 was such a well rewritten script that it got to the point it did. That is a movie we all really like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it also kind of reframes these movies, because he does have a really good movie to finish his career off on. Like Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me was such a bummer for Twin Peaks fans because it was the last Twin Peaks ever.
Right.
That when The Return came out, it was revisiting Fire Walk with Me. It's like one of David Lynch's best movies now, because it doesn't have that deadness of, oh shit, this is the end and we're not going to get a glimmer of hope at the end of something different.
So I'm going to push back on something that you said. Such great actors. I think what's wild to me about this film, watching it a second time this morning, not paying close attention to it the second time, because here's the problem. I did watch this a week ago. I said to myself, it can't be like that. Like in my head, like because in my head, I'm jumping a little bit to a reaction. We don't have to go all the way there, but in my head, I'm like, it's like I think what Lee said to me, my partner said to me, my wife, is watching it. This feels like Neil Breen if he had a budget. Because of just the level of the dialogue. And the wild thing to me is that it's shot pretty well. There's some great looking at the camera by the actors, the novice actors, but it's shot well. It's done competently as far as visually. And it has music that tells you what you're supposed to feel, unlike last week's movie. But there's like, it kind of takes me out of the movie, unlike when you have novice actors in the Nicolas Cage film that we covered, Joe. Whenever you have Jaleel White show up as a teacher, Jaleel White, most people know from Family Matters, as Steve Urkel and Stefan. But then you get like two, I think we even mentioned this in the first episode, two actors from Arrested Development.
Yep. Judy Greer and Tony Hale.
Yep. I get Thomas Lennon from The State and many other great things. So you get all these comedy actors playing it grounded. Like they're not trying to be comedic in a film which is not comedic, except for some really good bits about small cokes.
Tiny soda's so cute.
Which, that's a total Mandela effect. We've been saying Tiny Coke so cute for the last 5 years, and it's actually baby soda so cute.
We're still gonna say Tiny Cokes.
Yeah, Jenny calls them tiny. And she's always that is something that my wife has said to me about every kind of project you can imagine. Tiny ketchup bottle, so cute. Like she has a collection of tiny shit from her travels.
Tiny shit from her travels. She has a
weird.
She takes a little dookie as opposed to a big one.
And they let you come back to the country.
Whenever we're on the airplane or at the hotel or any other place, you get like a tiny ketchup bottle, but it's branded and it looks like a Heinz bottle. It's just tiny. She geeks out on that stuff and brings it home and has a collection. So when he said that, I thought it was adorable.
And do you think that maybe you didn't think that he was stealing Jenny's line?
No.
That maybe Alec Scarlitas had met Jenny at some point and heard her say that.
No.
Okay.
And Tom Cruise, if you're listening, send us your information and you could buy Jenny's collection. It'll make your hands look bigger.
Great point.
I love Tom Cruise. I'm just kidding, Tom.
I have a question about this movie. I watched the first 10 minutes of it last night and then the next hour and 20 minutes of it this morning. Is there text at the beginning of the film that explains the incident or not?
No.
Okay.
It's like, that's me and my friends driving in a convertible.
Yeah. Okay, so my question is, you're a boomer who has nothing better to do. You're retired on a weekday, so you go to the cinema. You choose this movie at random. You see the name Clint Eastwood. You don't know anything about it. What is this movie?
Oh,
because going into it, I think, this is my second time watching it, but I think even the first time I knew all the background and what it was about. And, they're actually casting the real people and I vaguely remembered the incident from when it happened too. But if you went into this movie not knowing any of that, and you're like watching, it's like these kids are hanging out and there's no real and then you keep cutting to a guy in a bathroom on a train taking his clothes off, and then there's a gun. Like, what? I don't understand what this movie even is.
I actually like the movie better the second time, having listened to the audiobook. But maybe talk about that in a moment. Go ahead, Ryan. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, I have thoughts about what Jack said, but it's also part of my reaction to the film. So if we're ready to move on, I'll talk. If not, then we'll keep talking about what we're talking about.
Let me just talk about, like, if you're going in the audience, you have no idea what this film is. Yeah, you see somebody with a evil denim washed shirt in Paris boarding a train, and you're like, weird. And then you go to the voiceover, Anthony's voiceover about driving around in a car with two unhip dudes, but they're best friends.
They're best buds.
And so you have a movie that starts with a train, then you maybe in a flashback or a flash forward, and a voiceover about somebody talking about how cool his friends are in the uncoolest way possible, almost. And then there is a flashback from that to two mothers in a school being bullied by a teacher, and then two join forces because they've been red pilled. Like it's and they're going to take their kids out and put them in a Christian school. It is. It has
Bizarre.
to be bewildering. Like that, I've watched a lot of Neil Breen, if not all of Neil Breen's films. And,
oh wow!
And it does feel a little bit. It has a similar congruity there as far as like storytelling. And if Neil Breen wrote about a real event, then maybe it'd be easier to ground it.
Well, if Tommy Wiseau, before he became, a punchline, if he tried to sincerely write about these young kids getting to know each other, the dialogue and the direction and the acting would be exactly the same, 100% the same. That is how I think on the original, I said, I don't think that the lady who wrote this has ever met a kid before. And then we joked, I don't think she's ever met another human being before, because the dialogue in these scenes is so, when you're right, when Thomas Lennon shows up or Buster Bluth, it's like you could almost feel them like trying, or at least Buster Bluth is trying to get something more than is on the page or with the people he's working with. And I also feel that Greer and Jenna Fisher, who, if my friends, if they were their moms, I'd be over at their house all the time. They're great. But I almost feel like their acting level is they are trying to match the kids around them.
Yes.
And it's like they're acting down. So it's all of a piece. And that's my way of wondering how Jenna Fisher and Judy Greer are so terrible in this. That's the only way it makes sense.
I think I think all of the professional actors are really hurt by the lack of a score in those scenes. Because most of their scenes, there's no music, and their performances are there to support the kids. And having some emotional cues for the audience really helps with that sort of thing. But when everything's just drying, all the dialogue is falling into a dead room, with no other sounds, you really have time to think about how it sounds coming out of their mouth more than what it's trying to convey. Thomas, so you read the book. Was the dialogue? My immediate reaction was that the dialogue is almost exactly from the book, and that the book is, because it's kind of a retelling of their story, so they're being vague in the details, but then the writer is saying like, quote, and then the principal said this, when the guy was like, and the principal was really mad at us, so the writer of the book just inserted something there, and then it got plopped into the
movie. It is, a lot of this is verbatim, including Tiny Soda, or where that line is, from the book. I guess there's some like small changes, like it wouldn't be both, because it's based off of the reality versus the movie, which is based off of the book, which is based off of reality. Mm-hmm. The two moms aren't there at the same time being told, which would never happen.
Yeah, it's I don't think we mentioned that the first time, but it's so ridiculous to have. It's like, why weren't all three moms there then?
Well,
or mom and a dad, because
there's only, they're in hetero couples, but the third mom. So what happens? It is not clear in the movie, but it becomes very clear if you've read the book and you're watching the movie. That's public school.
Yeah,
so the two white kids find each other in public school. It's not until they go to the Christian school that they meet their third friend, Anthony, and he's there on a scholarship for playing basketball, which if you're watching the film would not. He's like dribbling with his fists. Like, that's not scholarship material.
What?
I'm pretty sure it was a
Wow.
sports scholarship that he was on. He was on some type of scholarship because it's a private Christian school, and they can just barely, the two white kids could just barely afford it to go there. But that's
Yes,
part of answered. That's part of answered prayer.
Some of the things I noticed that you guys commented on about the interactions with the principal in the first episode, I think if you are familiar with the way Christian schools are, then like the conversation, for example, where the principal says you got to get your kids on medicine or your kid should go live with his dad.
No. Yeah, the principal just says you need to have. It's better if your dad, if dad raises a child.
Yes, and all of that stuff in my anecdotal knowledge from friends and stuff growing up, that is totally all stuff that could completely happen in a Christian school.
But in a public school,
no.
If you're having a parent-teacher conference, and it's like, oh, my neighbor also is coming in after me, but we're just gonna we're gonna do a double team right now, and we feel like our boys are being picked on.
I don't know. My mom was in meetings with other parents.
But it was probably called for both parents. It wasn't a one-on-one, and it's like, no, we're just going to double up. And then she's like, well, both of your sons suck and they need medicine because you're single moms. If you're single moms, they're more likely to smoke crack later in their life. It's like, well, But one thing I noticed is that she calls him out on looking out the window, and later Alec, when he's in community college, is looking out that window. And the conversation at community college, or it might have been college, it wasn't UO, but it might have been like Clackamas College or something, is about statistics, which you need in the military. But that line, when she walks out and she says, "My God is bigger than your statistics."
Oh my God.
I was like, oh, fuck, I'm in for this movie. This movie... If Neil Breen decided to direct Left Behind, I'm hoping.
Wow.
But that in the book is something that she thought, didn't actually say. But nonetheless, it's a line in the book, and most of the lines in the book are there. What's interesting about the book, I think, would have made an interesting movie. A more interesting movie is that they cut out the last third of the book. It's each told by each one of the, not in a Rashomon way, but each of the three men, three friends, get their own section. And and it starts off with Spencer Stone, the bald one who does the jiu-jitsu. He starts off the story, and it's like it follows him from his childhood meeting up with his neighbor Alec, and it's the two of them. And then it goes to Alec, and Alec's in college, and it's like high school, college time prior to the trip, up to the trip. And then it cuts over to Anthony, and Anthony's like from the attack through getting awards and going on parades and dancing with the stars and all the things that you don't see in the film.
Right.
And so it's from the kind of different perspectives, which makes a little bit of sense just for their personalities to structure it that way. But what you lose is you lose a third of the book. Fortunately, I don't want to see this movie any longer. At whatever it was, 88 minutes, it was just fine before the credits turned on. It's already too long. But the last third of it is probably the most interesting about the diplomatic response of the United States and France, and trying to figure out what actually happened on the train, misinformation in the news, trying to bring people's family to that award ceremony and get them out of the country. Some of them don't have passports. There's not a jet. The dude from Columbia Sportswear gave up his private jet, so that I think it's Sandler's family. No, it's Alec's family could fly and make it to Paris in time. There's like last minute people have to give up their seats so that Anthony's parents, his dad's a pastor who's really popular in Sacramento and works with gang members, which is why he doesn't have anything to do with guns. Is he banned guns from his son from playing with guns? And so he goes and hangs out with Spencer, and Spencer's like, "Hey, you want some guns?"
Yeah,
and he has to like hide his guns from his dad. So yeah, there's a lot more interesting things maybe in the book, but the book also has this weird sense of destiny for these.
Oh
It
my
feels like
God.
whoever the ghost wrote it had to put all this extra juice into the story as opposed to being a strict recounting of what happened.
Uh-huh.
We should get to reactions. Can we do reactions? I think I know what you guys all felt about it.
You definitely don't.
100% perfect.
You have
notes.
no idea.
Wait. This is Ken's rewatch.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we let him talk about if he has any change of opinion.
Sure.
I think my original opinion, where by the end of the movie, I really kind of like the charming lunkheadedness of having like the actual guys play it. It's like kind of like, hey, we got to be in a movie about ourselves. And I think that feeling kind of extended to them earlier in the movie. So like the stuff with Spencer and the active shooter scene. It's dumb, but I don't know. There's something kind of kooky and will never happen again about it that I kind of like. The stuff with the kids and Jenna Fisher and Judy Greer, I hated even more this time. And I felt like we mentioned it in the first one, but like Dark Place, there's something Dark Place about it where it's like somebody who doesn't know how people actually interact, like trying to do it like it's normal. Yeah, that part's still terrible. I think that part might even be worse now. But I do like all three of the guys, even though they're not great actors. Spencer, the main guy, is the best of the three. And the last sequence on the train is still fucking great. So I think I still have the same warmth towards it, but the things I hate, I probably hate even more. Jack, your second time, what do you think?
I thought that this reaches some sort of spiritual plane of filmmaking that would otherwise be impossible to attain, and I think Eastwood stumbled upon it completely by accident. I don't think he knew what he was doing or making at all, and I don't think he still does. I think he just shot it and released it as he does with all his movies and didn't think about it any further. But there's some sort of magic about these people being the actual people recreating this event, but not just recreating the event. I think when it really clicked for me is when they start going on the vacation, and seeing the sights, and they're doing all that, and I was thinking like holy shit, what I'm watching is these. Can you imagine the last vacation you took, wherever it was, doing that again from memory and trying to say the things that you were saying then, and trying to get into that space where you're thinking what you were thinking then and feeling what you're feeling then, but with an entire camera crew following you. I mean, it's such an absurd thing to try to do. And the fact that by the end of the movie, there's no reason for any of it at all just left me just like my jaw just dropped. I don't understand what any of this is or why it exists.
Wait,
this
Jack,
is maybe, yeah.
I just want to make sure I understand. Because they could have all been actors. Is that what you're saying? Like, it doesn't matter why they did it. There's no reason for it by the end.
But I don't know. I think this movie's broken my brain a little bit. I don't know. Because that's the other thing. If they were actors, if it was like, I don't know, Ryan Gosling or whatever, there still wouldn't be a reason for the movie to exist, because it's kind of a nothing. It's a 10-minute event stretched out into 90 minutes. Ryan, I'm really curious what you thought about it, though, because I saw your Letterboxd review.
You did. All right. I don't think anything that anybody else has said is wrong. That being said, twice this week, I watched a film that was made in 2018 that has previously appeared on this podcast, and I listened to that podcast. And the movies were not liked and made fun of mostly for great reasons in both accounts. And twice this week, I saw movies that blew my fucking mind. And those movies were Ready Player One and 15 to 17 to Paris. Now, something might be wrong with my water supply in my house because, like I said, everything you guys said about why 15, 17 to Paris should be awful, I mostly agree with, but it really worked on me. I do agree with Jack that I think Eastwood transcended our reality with his cinematic language in this film. I do think it was kind of intentional, but I don't think this is meant to be an entertaining film. I think this is meant to be a film that is shown in churches and in Christian schools as a sort of docudrama historical recreation. And looking back at his filmography, the idea, because I've been trying to understand why I like this movie so much and how to articulate what I think it's doing. So he makes Letters from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers, right? And both movies are World War II. And Flags of Our Fathers is about guys that we think are heroes, but are not. And Letters from Iwo Jima is the exact same. It's guys we think aren't heroes, the Japanese, but they are. And I think with American Sniper, Sully, 1517 to Paris, and Richard Jewell, he is trying to make movies about, in a time when he considers the country to be politically and spiritually lost, he's making these films about people who he thinks are capital R real American heroes. And he put these kids in it because he wants the world to see that this is his idea of what a true patriot and American is. And I think that's way more concerning to him than being entertaining. So the lead-in dialogue exists to establish, like, this kid's having a fucked up time in school because he has ADHD and all of the things that he loves are looked down upon by society. And yet that's what makes him ironically able to be the hero that this moment needed. And God made it that way. I think that for Christians, that is a great plot for a movie and a great biblical story, because these are people who listen to Christian rock and know that it sucks, but it's about Jesus, so they listen to it anyways. You know, like, quality is not a concern in the religious film or religious media community. It's that it has a good lesson. Ooh.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great lesson of a movie.
So my Letterboxd review, I did say that there are times where it feels like a Kirk Cameron movie.
Yeah, I think that is, and I think it's much better than a Kirk Cameron movie and not as bad as a Tommy Wiseau movie, but I think that is the level of quality for entertainment value that we're dealing with. I think there are a lot of other places where this is a really quality film. And for me, all the rest makes up for that. It is a terrible, as an entertaining motion picture, it sucks.
Thomas.
I mean, I guess we haven't really talked about the elephant in the room or what this film's really about, as far as I understood it, which was a young man who's a hero, like legit, dealing with an overcoming, though society still represses him, something that's very, very tragic, which is a lack of depth. Perception.
Amazing. Oh, that is so clever. Great job.
No, it's so this is my hard part, just because we do release this to the public, even though we have the one listener, and maybe I do believe that these three humans did something phenomenal that day, and something that I wonder if I would be able to do in the same situation. I do think that they should be honored. I don't know if that's by being in a film starring as themselves. And I don't think that it necessarily does them any. I think it's a nice, like, if they had cameos, that might have given them the same boost that they got from being in the whole film. I don't think that the film necessarily needed them as actors, and it might have actually been a better tribute to what they did with people who were professional actors. Because I guess what Jack was saying, there's like this. I was thinking about it like with two parts. One, like, I would hate to have to reenact the train sequence, having gone through it. And there's a moment in the book, which isn't captured, of course, in the film because it's afterwards, where Spencer Stone isn't able to go back to the States immediately because he's still active military, and they wanted to debrief him. And so he's in Germany, if I remember right, and he's staying with some of like on base, and he goes out. They like sneak him out because he can't really leave the base. They sneak him out with another military family, and they're eating the whole ride. The young girl of the family is like, I want to sit next to him. I want to sit next to him. I want to sit next to the hero. And there's like their kids are kind of like jockeying for positions. She kind of like sits in awe of him the entire meal, and he's uncomfortable. And she asks him like if he's like captain, if he's a superhero, and he starts to cry.
Yeah,
because he all of a sudden like it's like all the adrenaline and everything's just gone from him days later. Like the emotion and the realization of what all happened, he just starts to cry, weep in public at this dinner. And she goes, "I want to hug you, but I'm afraid I'm going to hurt you." Because he's still injured from the thing.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing to say.
That's amazing, right? Like that's where like your head kind of like breaks if you were in that position. I can't ever imagine being in that position. To make a movie that then like we're all kind of clowning about with good reason, maybe that's not done well, doesn't seem to like really serve them in the same way. And I was thinking I couldn't come up with much more than. What's the Johnny Depp movie where he's a smuggler in the 70s? It's like Snow or
Blow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Where at the end you see the person who he's supposed to be representing or Monster.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think that ending this film when it does is really interesting and fine with them getting the Legion of Honor. And it's the actual footage with some reenactment cut in.
Yeah. Really?
I think it's
didn't notice.
It's you also know that Forrest Gump, he didn't actually do all those things. Like that was digital reenactment as well. Not to spoil that film. Is it Zemeckis for you? No, but I think that one of the hard parts is if you're not a professional actor and you're told to act as yourself, you're going to want to be a little cooler on screen anyway, but you're not necessarily that person. And so it just becomes like this weird, like almost impossible to watch scenes.
Well, they kind of crosswash all of the guys to where they are scrubbed so clean of almost anything interesting that they don't seem like real people. I mean, when they're together, they have a chemistry, but the things they do are so like what a grandparent would want to think their kids are like. Oh, they went out and drank too much. Now they're hungover.
Yeah, that's also
that's as bad as it gets.
Well, they're also looking at that woman's skirt, which I thought was a little cringeworthy because the camera also does.
Oh yeah, we talked about in the original Clint Eastwood in his 80s, Tom Sawyer in his 70s shooting
pervy. I'll admit it. There needs to be a perv check whenever they let somebody over 75 writer or director shoot a movie because these guys have lost touch. Again, Thomas, I think everything you're citing is why this movie is entertaining, and I think that's all on purpose because I think the point of this movie is I make movies about a fantasy world, but here amongst us, in this time of woe, are three pure souls who exist on Earth and are as good as everything that you can imagine a person could be. And here's a movie about them. And I think that's what he's trying. And to the political, we've started to allude to the political valence of all of this. But one of the things I found most fascinating, while there are a number of cultural markers, the religious school and the references to God, the only time anyone in the film says something political is the French president, who otherwise gives this tremendously moving speech, I thought, about how these heroes saved. At the very end of the president's speech, which is all about how these guys saved their fellow human, he says, and they did this for liberty. And that is not true. Everything we've seen in the movie is that these are, to your point, like these are just boring, normal dudes. And the most boring, normal thing about them is that they just care about the people around them. And that's why they saved these people. It wasn't because it was a terrorist. It wasn't because they were French white people. It was because whoever these guys are near, they just treat them like normal people. And for the audience who like for all these totally understandable reasons we feel socially opposed to right now, I swear to God, that is how most of them think they exist in the world. Like, they may hate trans people in at the abstract, but the guy down the street who dresses up like a lady, they're still nice to him when they see him on Saturday at the diner. Like, and we may disagree with that. I'm not at all saying like that this perception of the world is correct, but I think this movie so beautifully captures that perception of the world that it really And the only other thing I'll say on this point, the wooden dialogue, the bad acting. If you guys saw this movie, and I'm not trying to be trolly, so I hope it doesn't come off that way. If we all saw this movie and it had been made in Bangladesh and was about a type of person that we had never encountered in the world, and we knew used amateur actors who were just pulled off the streets of Bangladesh, I think all of the things that make it hard to stomach as an entertainment would go over a lot easier because it's also foreign to you. But that's total. That might be galaxy. This whole take is galaxy brain.
It's like it's hard to prove a negative.
Exactly.
No. I agree with that. The only other movie I was thinking about this, the only other movie I've seen that even comes close to this level of like transcendence that this movie reached watching it for me this time is Werner Herzog's last narrative film he did, Family Romance LLC. It's about
what a title.
Yeah, right. It's about like a Japanese like rent a boyfriend company or something. But he does the same thing where he uses the real people that work there as characters in the story he's trying to tell, and that sort of gets to the same place of that level of disassociation that you feel watching it. But I think in 1517 to Paris, it's even more so just because of the content of the actual event that they're experiencing. And Thomas, you said that if you were these guys, or like you might have a hard time, or you might see how it would be hard to like recreate this event. Like you wouldn't want to do it. And watching it this time, I was blown away by the train sequence at the end because I felt like I was watching the event as it happened, staged as it happened, but I'm also at the same time watching these people like work through their trauma of the event by recreating it step by step.
Yes.
And that's just the mind-blowing part to me.
Yeah, I don't know, psychological theories swing wildly over the years, but currently the thinking around trauma is that doing this, making a movie where you got to reenact it but controlled the situation, is like the ideal way to get over your shit. Is exposure, extreme exposure therapy is what, if a shrink can figure out how to get you back in that situation where you're in charge, that's how they think right now. 10 years later, they might think like, oh, that was terrible. We fucked up all these people forever. But right now.
Well, I mean, Flags of Our Fathers, which was 9 years earlier than this, is about a heroic event and how the when they came back to the States, how the media just kind of chewed them up and spit them out. And there is an interesting part of that when, Thomas, you're talking about the stuff that happened afterwards and all those logistics, where the real world kind of intrudes and base human values kind of mess things up in retrospect. And there is an interesting movie in that as well. It wouldn't have anything to do with this movie. That would be like a fully scripted movie. But Eastwood, in a way, has already made that. But there is no scene of where like Adam Beach's Ira Hayes is like walking off and disappearing because of the whole thing in Iwo Jima. His whole life was ruined.
So do you think it'd be interesting if this film ended with them like having the parade, having the speech in Sacramento, meeting Obama, and then getting a phone call from Clint Eastwood to make a movie?
I think if we had a disaster artist type movie about the making of this movie, and actually have fake people playing the real people.
Whoa.
I love that. And that's a fucking picture.
That's a picture right there.
Yeah. But it does feel like that movie would get far away from the heroics and I guess the intent of this movie, which I think might be very close to what Ryan says. Though one thing that doesn't occur in the book does occur on screen and does track, because I think, my wife asked me on the couch, like, is Clint Eastwood a Christian? I'm like, I don't think he is. I just think he's, slightly conservative.
He's cosplaying.
Yeah,
Is
I thought probably he was. I think I think a religious person would have made that any references to God more interesting than they are.
I think that they would be a little bit closer to the book in the sense of destiny and those statements. But there is a moment that's not in the book, as far as I recall, that is on the train, which I thought was very interesting, which is Spencer Stone has his fingers in the coronal artery and is keeping this guy alive. And he goes, "Do you want me to pray with you?" And the guy's like, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in the film at all. It doesn't have to be in the movie at all. The other direction could have gone, right? They could have, but that's just a very quiet moment. The thing that I think I like you said, Ryan, that I bump up against a little bit, rewatching this the second time and having listened to the book, is that, and I don't think they do it much in the film, is the idea that this was a terrorist act.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works much better, and I think saying it's for liberty is like politicizing what they did. If you take this just as a mass shooter, I appreciate what they did even better somehow, because the film also leaves out what some of the book has, El Kazani and his story. It's just not there in the film. So I'd rather this be thought of as like a mass shooter thing, and then I'm like even more on board because it's taking a little bit more of the politics out of it and adding more to the heroism.
Yeah,
he doesn't get a background where he has like a cool handshake with a kid that he meets.
Okay, can I talk about
camp?
Thank you. So when Kid Anthony is in the principal's office after they all get kicked out of basketball because he says bad words, which is kind of in the book, and in the book it's so glossed over in the movie, but for whatever reason they had to put it in there. In the book, they often get paired together because their last names in a small school all begin with an S.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, they're always getting partnered up together. And so Buster from Arrested Development tells the two white kids to go afterwards as well, right? Yeah. And the two kids, I'm going to use the H word, the two honkies, give this like jive handshake, right? Uh-huh. And Anthony says, "I didn't realize you two could be that cool." And then and then he looks at the camera for a second. and when I pause it and send you that photo of him looking at the camera, it's like him saying, "What?" Like, I can't believe I just said that. It's like he's mugging to the camera.
Yeah, you're probably wondering how I got here.
And it breaks everything. And if you want to watch this at home and you have your Blu-ray from the Multnomah County Library,
shout out.
It happens at minute 9:11.
No way.
So try and remember that.
That jet fuel can't melt steel beams, bitch.
What are you guys talking about?
Wow.
No, seriously, guys. What's 9/11?
I certainly enjoyed this movie a lot more. I kind of think it's a masterpiece.
Me too, but albeit not a very specific type of movie that most people will rightfully hate. I would never convince. I don't think the Tommy Wiseau comparison is correct, but I would never argue with you, Ken. Or similar with the Neil
kids.
Breen. Yeah,
I think Eastwood's penchant for first drafts of screenplays is really the Achilles heel of this entire film, because the scripted stuff is so fucking terrible. Yeah, I don't understand how it got to the writing phase, to the director and producers, to the shooting phase, and nobody ever looked at it. Because I guess we joked in the original that somebody did, and the result is them having fixed it, which would make it even worse. But just watching this, it's so hard to believe the complete lack of being able to write anybody who sounds like a human being in a major motion picture by a 2-time Oscar winner is one of the things I love about the movie. But also it's one of the things that doesn't make sense. Like, how did they get to the point where they're casting these kids and they're trying to get these kids to say this robotic dialogue? It makes so little sense. It's why I love it.
It makes sense in the background, like from the Hollywood side, because nobody thought American Sniper was going to do anything. And it turned out to be this bazillion-dollar movie because all of the red staters went out to see it. And then similar with what happened after Passion of the Christ, Hollywood execs go, holy shit, there's this huge market out there that we just don't understand at all. But obviously Eastwood understands it. So let's just hire him to do whatever he wants as long as it plays well in Alabama. And Clint was like, oh yeah, I got another one of these. Let's do it all day. That's my...
But I also think that he wanted to do a movie celebrating these three gentlemen.
Yeah. But as far as why they let him do it is because they figured they don't understand the audience. Well, maybe he does.
I think the most Eastwood thing about the Wikipedia page for this is in July, Eastwood finally decided that he was going to use the actual guys to play themselves. And then it follows up with the film started shooting later that month.
Amazing. I do think both Honky Tonk and 15 to 17, I think he made a ton of choices in both movie and all of the things we've pointed out about both movies. If he made different choices, these are maybe Best Picture winners. You know, if it is professional actors and it does go into the stuff that happened afterwards and the script does get 4 more passes, like this could be a really big hit, I think. But obviously, everything.
It still made a few bucks.
Did it?
With Eastwood's name, yeah.
I wrote that. I don't know if this is a damning review or not, but I did write that this is a good date movie if you want to spend time talking and connecting with your date. Because I think Lee and I ended up doing a lot of kind of knocking off some chores type stuff, like talking about business and things that we needed to do and get accomplished for the rest of the week while it was going on. And I don't feel like I lost anything by doing that.
But when the actual attack happened,
minute 1 hour 11, so 71 minutes in, is amazing.
Yeah. So you both sat down for that though, and
no, we were sitting there the entire time. We were just talking to each other, getting to know each other a little bit better. Which, often if you go on a date and you're watching a movie, especially if you're with Ken, he's gonna shush you. But this movie,
you're not even saying this is a good date movie. This is a good movie when you and your spouse need to sit down and do your taxes.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing.
Wait, you don't call that a date? What do you two? I look. I actually don't need to know what happens between in your. I live and let live.
Yeah. And then you look up and you see some guy's finger in the guy's neck wound, and you're like, "Well, taxes could be worse."
The disarming scene. The whole bit at the end of the Destiny where our main hero could have gotten killed 3 different times and the guns don't work for whatever reason each time. But when he takes the terrorist down and the terrorist pulls up the handgun and he strikes the handgun with his free hand in a way that both takes the bullet out of the chamber and drops the mag out of the bottom of the gun I watched that scene 6 times because I was like, how is that even physically possible to do that? And I just assumed that he's badass enough in real life that that's actually what he did, or he got super lucky.
Yeah. But, so the hard, they don't like the it's not an AR. I think it's an M16. Did the primer didn't go off in the bullet, which is just crazy, right? Buy your guns from better people. But actually, I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are all pretty remarkable things. The hard part and the thing that, because the book also cross-cuts back and forth in time, going back to the train over and over again and being very repetitive. But one thing that the author keeps emphasizing is that your focus narrows in those times of crisis. So you're focusing on one threat and you're not really thinking about another thing. You don't realize this person's been shot and they're right next to you. You see it a little bit in the movie, but there's actually a young girl underneath, if I remember right. The man is bleeding out, and she's just should be covered in blood whenever they rescue him. And she's just cowering, in a fetal position, not knowing what to do. But they don't see her for a long time, and they can't find the gun, even though he had a gun. Where is it? They just can't see anything because their focus is down through a straw, right? Because of all the intensity of what's going on. So what we see, those things, we don't fully know what exactly happened. A lot of the reconstruction that was done surprisingly, and I don't want to promote this at all, it was from Anthony taking so many photos with a selfie stick. So I don't want to promote selfie sticks, just like I don't want to promote roller bag luggage.
But if you want your vacation turned into a movie,
yeah.
So the active shooter scene earlier in the film where what's his bucket is the only one that gets up after they move the desk in front of the door, and he has the pen that he's going to do something with. The guy comes in, and then the teacher's like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" The guy that it's so funny. The guy comes in, is like, well, it was an active shooter alarm, but it turns out it's for somewhere else. See, it's okay. And they just leave it.
So what really happened?
Wait, there's an active shooter somewhere else? Where?
No. So this is what's crazy about like the adaptation, which is to the film at some level, and it's this kind of washing of things that happen. Because one of the things I got from reading about the two, about Spencer Stone and Sandler, Anthony, as two friends growing up, like they're picked on, they're like bullied, they wear camo to school, they run for class president and they don't get almost any votes, they're ostracized, they only have themselves, they're constantly picked on, they play with guns all the time. It's like Elephant, a setup. Like they're like in the book, I'm like, oh, these kids, it sounds like the profile of school shooters.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
And then
throwing all those airsoft guns on the bed. I'm like, wait, what movie are we watching?
I can't tell you how. I'm sorry, Thomas. I don't mean to interrupt.
So you can't tell me how.
I can't tell you how. So my cousins are active military. Their parents were, and this, they are. A lot of people on the right are very disturbed and obsessed by the equivocation of things as they see as part of normal, healthy boy development with like disturbed school shooter behavior. So they raise their kids to be good at guns and to have their own guns and to admire the military and want to wear camo to school. But yeah, we see it in the overall cultural lens is that these guys are.
I didn't see that in the movie as much as hearing about it in the book, because they're spending more time about how they only had themselves as friends. And it's just as I'm hearing, I'm like, oh, these actually sound like they might be radicalized to be a mass shooter. And then just throw the word terrorist on top of it. If they have any type of political motive, then yeah, these could have easily been the people on the train in my head in a different world, right?
Yeah.
But to continue with what I was saying, two things that are left out. One, I just said, like Anthony's dad's a preacher in Sacramento, and he helps broker peace between gangs. And that's one of the reasons he doesn't allow for guns in his house. The second thing is that active shooter thing happened. In the book, the cause for it wasn't a shooter at a different base. Though my understanding, listening to the book, was that there was a shooter at the base where Stone was. But it was a domestic dispute, and the man shot the woman, and heterosexual couple shot the woman 5 times and nearly killed her. Would have if she didn't have a key fob on her that like helped protect the bullet from hitting a vital organ.
Jesus!
And so you change that in the movie to something of, oh, there wasn't really a threat, and you leave the violence of guns out of it somehow. Domestic violence of guns, proliferation of guns out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But the thing that was crazy to me watching the movie, not knowing any of that, was the multiple times where Stone's like, fuck following rules. I'm a maverick. That's what we're soldiers. We shouldn't be following rules. And it's like, wait, what? what are you saying? I didn't get the job I want. I want a different job. It's like, wait, you know that what the military is like, don't you? And then like everyone just his instructor just calls him an asshole versus being like, you disobeyed an order and there's a reason why these things happen. You go underneath your desk, you don't engage because they don't know who's going to be the bad guy with the gun if you have a gun as well in that situation.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's a protocol. That's why there's rules for these things, and that's why you follow the rules.
But again, I think Eastwood hates the rules. You know, he's conservative, but he doesn't like the military structure, I don't think. I think he hates all this shit. So that's why he portrays it that way.
But it's also in the book that way as well.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it might be something that he glommed onto. Yeah. The thing that he left out was that there was an active shooter there, or that the screenplay writer.
Yeah, who decided he would be working at Jamba Juice and then ask his coworker, "What's that recruitment center?
No,
What's
no,
that all
no.
about?"
That is That's in the
worst
book.
line of- oh
That
my
is in
God,
the
what a
book,
worst line of
100%.
dialogue. The only thing I found completely unbelievable, as poorly portrayed as it was the idea that this kid who wore camo in school in junior high doesn't know what an army recruitment center looks like. Like,
Recruit for what?
yeah, like this kid has been waiting to turn 18 so that he can go in there and like be like, "Sir, I'm ready." You know,
Right. Pretty awesome. Have we arrived at our destination, fellows? That was a train joke.
I think the erotic train has come to a stop. Yeah.
Wait, the erotic train? What did you say?
Isn't that what we were listening to before the podcast started? Erotic train?
Come On and Ride the Train by the Quad City
that's what it was
DJs.
called?
If that train had reached its destination, it would have dropped them off at Gare du Nord in Paris, which is one of the worst shitholes you could possibly go to in your life. In fact, it's been so terrible for so long that you can go back and read Hemingway when he was living in Paris. He would be complaining about it. And who's that other guy? W. Somerset Maugham. In his books, he'd be complaining about Gare du Nord. That was back in the 1860s. They haven't done shit to fix it up. Total shithole.
Just a reminder, Jack lived in Paris for a year.
Yes, as our
And
parents
has no knowledge of time. The 1860s were pre-Civil War.
as our Paris expert, Jack, is it true that everybody else in Europe thinks Paris is a shithole?
Yeah, I think people in Paris also think Paris is a shithole.
Yeah, but if a guy comes up to you at a bar in Dusseldorf or Berlin or wherever they were, and is like wearing a leather jacket and is in his 70s, and he's like, my band loves to go through. Never mind. It was wild to me that they're like, this dude's got it together. He loves pretty young women, and there's a lot of them in Amsterdam. Good advice. Let's go to Amsterdam.
Like, nah. Thomas.
Yeah.
You listened to the audiobook, so maybe you could answer a mystery in this movie. Spencer is the kid who's chubby when he's young, right?
Stone. Yeah.
Yeah. So when his buddy leaves, he's sad in his room or praying or something, and there's two beds in the room.
Yeah.
Two twin beds. Who did the other bed belong to?
I was wondering that too.
Spencer
Is there like a sibling cut out?
He has three siblings. Alex not a sibling. Alec is his neighbor.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's a single mom working for the government, doing maybe like it's unemployment or some type of assistance program. And she believes, she has a good nose for bullshit. She's got a good bullshit detector and knows when someone's trying to scam the system versus people who are deservingly getting help. And she's got three kids. And I think it's Alec's mom who knows that her God's bigger than statistics, but I'm not sure. I have a 50-50 shot at it.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Great talk about 1517 in Paris.
Woo! Good talk.
Yeah, what? So have you been looking up, is that why Jack's so quiet? He's doing more research on what song might go along with this?
Masters of War from the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.
And of course, Roseanne Barr could say, my God's bigger than your statistics, and hold up a picture of Trump washing the feet.
No, she is totally playing the terrorist. Shut up. She comes out with just a backpack on.
Hey,
you guys.
I don't need your fantasy.
Is she gonna blow up the train by putting a bunch of toasters in the microwave or whatever?
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
Well done. Ryan, thank you for the theme song.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our next pairing.
Yeah, double Eastwood.
One of which is White Hunter Blackheart, where the clip from our theme song comes from.
Yeah.
The other one's American Sniper, both based on books.
Two of the most contentious movies we've ever covered. American Sniper was dead last, and Jack and I our complete Eastwood countdown.
That's right.
Dead last.
I'm
Below
wondering,
City Heat, below the 8 movies. Yeah.
Real piece of shit.
I expect to hate it, but I'm wondering if somehow this 1517 to Paris experience will bring me back with another hot take.
No, Ryan, what's going to happen is you're going to watch it and you're going to say it's secretly a far left condemnation of American patriotism and
Actually, this
history
is a
of
Mark
film
pick.
propaganda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's what I see on Letterboxd.
Crypto feminist
that.
Clint Eastwood has brought up interpretation of the Bush administration through fake babies held by Bradley Cooper. This sounds exactly like the bullshit I would pick up too.
It's Bradley Cooper. White Hunter Black Heart, one of my favorites that Jack and Thomas do not like at all.
I am excited for that. I'm going to read the book as well.
I'm expecting to like this one. Ken and Jack, Honky Tonk Man. Is Bird like Honky Tonk Man in its presentation?
No, Bird is Bird is a masterpiece, one of his best movies.
Okay.
Bird is amazing.
Yeah. I think about, I'll just say, I'm not going to say what happens in the context of the movie because you have to see it. I have a DVD of it if you want to borrow it.
Okay.
I can make you some JoJo's.
Yeah.
The phone scene, I think about that all the time. It's one of Eastwood's best sequences of his entire career.
It is so good. So good.
I will.
It has a flashback within somebody else's flashback, which I love it when movies do that because it doesn't really make sense in the real world. But it's like, how deep are you going to go?
Yeah. Bird is much dreamier and inkier and kind of more abstract than anything Eastwood has ever done before.
Oh wow, that is as we've rewatched his movies in close proximity, doing the rewatch series, that tendency of his that you're talking about, Jack, I've never noticed it before. And in all of these movies, there's at least one scene where it's like he goes off into some impressionistic or surreal, amazing bullshit that I just would have never caught if we hadn't been watching them together like we have been.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you guys.
Hey, I just want to say something here at the end, if you don't mind. My name is Thomas Logan. You're probably wondering why a Zoomer like me is hanging out with these two Gen X crackers. But trust me, they're my two closest friends. Let me introduce you. This is Ken Coral, the robot. He's a strong editor. He'll always have your back in the editing room whenever you're in trouble. And this is Ryan Tobias. You can expect technical issues and hot takes, but he's got your back when you're in trouble because I'm sure he'll find it first. Seems like the three of us have been getting each other in trouble ever since the Aronofsky season, talking pie in the well. But let me take you back to how it all began with Clint Eastwood.
Wow. Where am I? Where do I fit into that?
Yeah, where's the part about I didn't know you guys could be so cool?
Oh, baby
You're
Coke.
in France, unfortunately, Jack. For the purposes of this, you are the extra kids that we've just purely cut out of the film for convenience. So, in other words, Clint Eastwood has just made Ken the parent of an only child. So sorry to you. Hopefully, in the next round, we can rope you back into the family.
I don't care.
All right.
It was my footprints there, Jack.
I don't hate it. I just don't know why you strayed from the formula.
You bastards! In case you don't know it, Bob, I'm an artist. And I must reflect that in my writing.
I'm going to use the H word. The two honkies, Come On and Ride the Train by the Quad City DJs.
Whenever she takes a little dookie as opposed to a big one. Now, something might be wrong with my water supply in my house.
Well, no, seriously, guys, what's 9/11?
Letterbox is spying on you.